Hey friends, my name is Nate Nims. Thank you for joining us this morning at Grace Des Moines. Today we are going to spend some more time on the Enneagram. The last spiritual practice Thursday we did a brief introduction to the Enneagram, looking sort of all at the numbers that are represented there, the personality types in this dynamic personality system. And for the next few weeks we're going to go through number by number so that we can see and learn more about how others see the world and hopefully find our own space in this system as well. What helps me with the Enneagram most of the time is a couple things. It's remembering other people see the world different ways, which means they respond and react to the world in different ways. But then the other thing that helps me is this. It gives me that sort of mindfulness to recognize within myself the habits and patterns and routines that I can, without thinking, find myself living into. And sometimes those habits and routines are very helpful and healthy, but other times they are destructive and can become dangerous. What the Enneagram does is it recognizes how our personalities ebb and flow. It recognizes the ways that we live and move in the world when we're healthy, when we're doing okay, and when we're not healthy. And it'll show us when we're just hanging on by a string as well. So we're going to start in this gut triad. If you remember from the last conversation that we had, the gut triad, the folks that their first response to life is just they feel it in their gut and they do it, is 8, 9, and 1. And this triad is starting with the 8, and we'll see the range of what that sort of gut response is. Now we're going to start by sharing some things that you might recognize within yourself or within others that 8s commonly feel or see within themselves. Now with the Enneagram, it's important to not be a number thumper. You don't want to go around and just say, oh, I learned a little bit about this. You are such a 2. You don't want to say to someone, oh, why are you being such a 6? It's not about putting anyone in a category. It's more about understanding the shades of the humanity that we recognize within ourselves. So with that in mind, if you're an 8, there is a good chance someone has told you that you are too blunt and aggressive. If you are an 8, doing something halfway is not possible for you. You would not stop midstream. You're going to keep fording ahead. If you are an 8, there's a very good chance that you like debate, that you like those verbal skirmishes where you can see where you stand with others. In relationships that matter to you, 8s crave honesty. They don't need pretense. They don't need to have someone sort of hide behind some flowery words. They want to know bluntly, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? They just want that connection. And anything that feels flowery in the space between that honesty, they don't trust. So it can be very difficult for 8s to trust folks because they can sometimes think if someone is being too kind, too complimentive, too just engaging in a different way, that they're hiding something, that they're not being as honest as they should be. 8s are very oriented towards justice. Part of this comes from 8s needing to stand up for themselves. They are their own best advocates, and because of that, they are often advocates for others. If they see the schoolyard bully picking on someone, they're going to go after that schoolyard bully and make sure they know exactly what they did was wrong. 8s can sometimes sniff out weaknesses in others. They can recognize the the vulnerabilities that we all try to live with and cover up sometimes. 8s make decisions very quickly from the gut, and they act on it, and they just go and move. They don't want to beat around the bush. They want to get whatever they're going towards done. 8s really want to know exactly where you stand because they know where they stand. A good motto for an 8 might be, an offense is better than a defense, right? They want to have that offensive maneuver in mind, and they don't really care about the defense because they're just going to keep pushing forward. 8s know that they are respected, but they would love that companionship that comes with admiration. And there's a subtle difference there, because respect in certain context can just be demanded and a given, but that admiration, that love, that comes from a mutuality. And 8s can sometimes struggle to find that mutual ground. An 8 might say, if God wanted my heart to be on my sleeve, God would have put it there instead of safely inside my protected chest. 8s have a hard time being vulnerable and open and honest with their emotions, but underneath their very tough and guarded exterior is a lot of raw emotion that they wrestle with, and they're not always sure what to do with. Now, as some of you know, I am a cat person, and so why not share what an 8 is like through a cat meme, right? And an 8 is just longing to see what the true colors on the inside are, so they might start an argument just to see what happens inside there. They're curious. They want to know what's going on. 8s love that. Now, a good 8, a healthy 8, someone that is well-balanced, mindful, thoughtful, spiritually aware, and an 8 that is healthy is going to be a great leader. They're going to be extremely healthy as a leader. They're going to be a champion of causes. They are going to have courage and stamina and endurance. They are going to learn how to use their power in right measure. And a healthy 8, when they're at their best, an 8, instead of being a steamroller, will start being a collaborator. Sometimes, because 8s have such a need to keep pushing forward, they can just push people over. They can roll over folks, and they just look behind and they see it in their wake. And an unhealthy 8 might say to themselves, those folks should have known better because we were going this direction anyway. But a healthy 8 is going to recognize the contributions of others and be able to appreciate and work with them. An unhealthy 8 is going to be a bit less diplomatic. They're going to be a little more dualistic in their mindset. They're going to think and act as just right and wrong, good and bad, black and white, with no shades of gray in between. An average 8 is going to use some of their aggression more often, and that aggression for an 8 isn't really anger, it's passion. It's their drive and desire to make things right, to stand up for the good cause. But the struggle that other personalities can have with 8s is that an 8's personality can sometimes feel twice as large to other personalities. It just feels so much bigger than others. So an average 8 doesn't always come across as a more patient or understanding or sensitive person, frankly. An unhealthy 8 is going to be preoccupied with thoughts of honesty and connection. They're going to be afraid of what people are holding back. Now, with the Enneagram, one of the most important things to remember is that personality is not just shaped by these exterior actions, but by our interior dialogues, by the messages that we tell ourselves, by those stories that we've developed that shape our personalities. And as a child, it is sometimes said that 8s build up this story that sometimes people can be trusted, but a lot of times they can't. And because 8s grow up sometimes worried about trust and honesty, they're not sure who they can trust, they're not sure who is being honest with them, and they're afraid. And they feel like they're going to be wronged, they're going to be betrayed, they just don't know who to trust, and they start to imagine everything in their relationships that could fall apart. Now, what 8s love about being an 8 is the confidence that they have. They are just naturally confident people. They are strong leaders. They can walk into a discussion where folks aren't making a decision and say, this is where we need to go and this is why. And with that confidence, with that bravado that they have within themselves, others will follow them. But what folks don't necessarily like about being an 8, the feelings that get unspoken, the fears and biases that folks can have against them. And this is very true for women. Women, if they are an 8 personality, have a very difficult time in the United States because this 8 personality is dominant and domineering and leading and in charge and pulling others forward, and that is not always the stereotypical role that we have for women in the United States. But 8s are great leaders, they're passionate, but at the same time they know that they can sometimes come across to others as insensitive or judgmental or bossy or challenging or argumentative. What one person said about being an 8, and they wish that folks understood about them, is that their aggressive stance in the world isn't about you. They said, my aggression and my passion, if it feels like it's towards you, it doesn't mean it is. You don't need to be afraid of me, and you don't need to be concerned that I'm upset with you. I just care about you this much. That's the motivation of the 8. Their care is so strong. Their passions are such a flame that they have to let it out. But sometimes to others, the way that passion unfolds just feels like a flamethrower. It feels like it is so much. But for the 8, it's not about you. It's about what is bringing them to life, about the cause that they need to make right, about the way that they're living and moving in the world that is inspiring them to lead and want to take others with them. So here's some questions to consider to see if you are an 8, or to start to think about folks that you might know that could be an 8. And again, this is not just so you can go up to someone and say, I know your personality, this is who you are. This is so that we can understand ourselves and understand others a little better. So questions to consider if you are an 8. If you're an 8, you are likely uncomfortable as a follower. If you are in a room and you know you could do a better job than the current leader. Like if you're in a group project and someone is in charge of that project and you know you could do better than them, you really have a hard time following them because you want to take the lead. 8s are known for their ability to take a stand. So do others know you as someone that stands firm and solid and grounded? Another question to consider if you are an 8, or if someone you know is an 8. Do you get annoyed when people are indirect? When they don't say the direct truth? Do you need them to just be blunt and honest, even if it might sting a little bit? Would you prefer that rather than having them dance around the question that you ask them? You might be an 8 if you have a hard time letting down your guard. If only a few folks have seen you be truly sensitive and vulnerable, there is a good chance that you are an 8. And that comes from one of the biggest struggles for an 8. Do you have a hard time trusting people? Does it take a lot for you to truly trust that someone will be honest and open and there with you. So for stress, when 8s are in stress, as you might remember from the discussion before, 8s move to 5, right? In the Enneagram, all of these personality types, they interact with one another. And the arrow that points down from 8 goes to 5. That's their stress, the way that they descend. Now for an 8, when they take on the unhealthy qualities of 5, it means that they withdraw. They are less connected with their emotions, and they start to neglect themselves and their well-being in some ways. In this space, 8s can be very secretive, less open, less sharing, less communicative, and they can become a bit more vigilant in their fears about betrayal. In this unhealthy, stressful space, 8s are known for taking their stand, but when they're unhealthy and in this stress, they dig in their heels. Even if they're not completely sure they're right, they're still going to dig in a little bit and keep moving forward that way. Insecurity, though, you can see the arrow that points to the 8 in this diagram. That's where they get some healthy energy from. And for 8s, that comes from the 2 space, that 2 personality type, where they are caring and conscientious and giving and even gentle. They can trust that there are values other than their own, that justice is something that we can strive for together, that they don't just have to bulldoze over, but they can be a part of a community that is moving in a new direction. When 8s live into this space, they are more generous, they are more caring, and they are more cooperative with others. So that's the stress and security. When 8s are unhealthy, they descend to that 5 space. They become more secretive, more closed off, a little less connected with their emotions. But when they're healthy, they receive from that 2 space, as you can see on the chart. The arrow goes down and the arrow goes towards. Now, in the Enneagram, there are also wings. You've got a number on either side of your number, and that speaks to the different shades and hues of our humanity. So an 8 could have a 7 wing or a 9 wing. And once we get through all of these Enneagram numbers, it'll make a lot more sense in the bigger picture. But an 8 with a 7 wing is going to be the more extroverted version of an 8. They are going to be outgoing and energetic and fun. They're going to be ambitious. At times it might even seem like they're impulsive, but they want to live life to the fullest. They are entrepreneurial, they are energetic, they want to keep moving forward. And with the 7 energy that we'll get to, they've got this desire to have the next fun thing, to put away anything that is sort of a negative thought and do something exciting or fun to try to push that down. Now, the 8 with the 9 wing is going to be a bit more introverted because we'll get to 9 next week. But 9s are the peacemaker. 9s want to maintain their relationships, so they're a little less likely to push their opinions on others. They are going to be more cooperative as an 8. They're going to be less in competition. 8s with a 9 wing are going to be very supportive, modest, less blustery in their interactions with others, but they're still great leaders. They're just going to do more collaborative leadership. Now, each of these Enneagram types has a sort of a struggle, a deadly sin that can make them fall into unhealthy, stressful situations. And for 8s, it is lust. Lust as an intense and excessive desire to have more, to be in control, to project their strength. There's this lust towards power and protection and vigilance, which means weakness or vulnerability can never be seen. The countering virtue to that is chastity. To learn to moderate the intensity, to not need to be excessive with control, but to recognize the value of vulnerability. 8s should probably read books by Brene Brown, right? These powers of vulnerability where we can be honest with ourselves and others. Now, how 8s can be more mindful, how they can enter a spiritual practice, one that I enjoy is called SNAP. So the S in SNAP stands for stop, which for an 8 means literally stop. Stop what you're doing, even if it's just for a minute, and give yourself a break to take a breath. Let yourself just sit and not do. Just be honest as you slow down and recognize the feelings that come and go in that moment, but truly stop. And then as they've stopped, an 8 needs to notice. That's the N in SNAP. They need to think about how they feel and what others are around them. An 8 needs to recognize sometimes, do others feel tense or relaxed around me? When I walk into a room, do people get on edge and does it seem like they're on eggshells? Or do they see in me a leader that they can work with? That's one of the difficult dynamics for 8s to see in themselves, and that's one of the things that if you're not an 8, you need to recognize with them. Because it's not that their aggression is ever about you necessarily, but it's about the relationship that you have with one another and how their energy and passion can be harnessed in ways that reach for this common good. 8s need to notice when their emotions are overcharged. If an 8 ever feels like their personality is twice as big, then to others it's 10 times as big. So 8s need to notice that. And then with the things that we notice about ourselves, we need to ask, what are we believing right now? An 8 could ask themselves, do I believe that this world is a cold, dark place and I have to be battle ready at all times because I never know who, like Brutus, is going to stab me in the back? 8s sometimes need to ask themselves, is opening my heart and being honest about how I really feel dangerous or helpful? And as an 8 can ask themselves questions about how they see themselves right now, they can ask, what do these beliefs make me feel? Do they make me feel guarded or suspicious or defensive? Or in this moment, am I feeling more open and vulnerable and connected? Depending on how those feelings come alive, you can recognize in yourself, am I feeling healthy in this moment, or is my stress overtaking me and I need to move in a better direction? And the P in SNAP is pivot. I need to make a turn. I need to move in a new direction. And for an 8, that can mean remembering that it's not shoot, ready, aim. It's ready, aim, fire. 8s need to have that moment where they pivot into thinking and feeling before acting. Pause to think about how you feel, or feel your feelings, but then act. A pivot for 8 can mean allowing things to happen instead of always being the one that has to make them happen. A pivot for an 8 can be letting others take the lead. It can be practicing this moderation. Ian Cron wrote the book The Road Back to You with Suzanne Stabile, and in that book on the Enneagram, they write, the healing message that 8s need to know, believe, and feel is this: there are lots of trustworthy people in the world, and though the risk of betrayal is real, love and connection will forever elude them until they are welcomed. There is always a risk of betrayal, but there are always trustworthy people. And until we open our hearts, we will not always feel that open connection to others. The healing that an 8 can find is in that connection with openness and vulnerability, and it's not going to be easy. That's an upstream journey that does not come naturally, but it is still good. So spiritual transformation for an 8, the spiritual ideals that 8s need to remember. They need to have a friend, and it might just be one person, but they need to have a friend that can tell them your personality is bigger than you realize right now. They need to have that good friend or spouse or mentor. They need to have that connection with someone that can say, this is how it feels. And an 8 needs to remember when they're told this person is not betraying me, this person is not rejecting me, they are helping me. 8s have to also watch out for their black and white thoughts. They need to remember that there are a whole host of shades of gray, and in the books there were at least 50 of them, and I know that's a bad joke, but I make it every time I teach the Enneagram. They need to recognize that there is a range of perspectives, and while they might have a lot of passion about theirs, a nuanced position that is similar to theirs is not wrong, it is just nuanced. 8s, maybe the biggest spiritual transformation and growth for 8s is seeing their vulnerability as a strength. And that might be the language that an 8 has to use to let themselves be vulnerable. They might have to say themselves, I am going to be so strong that I will let others see my scars. I'm going to be so strong that I will let others see my harms and hurts, and then I will show them how I've grown through them. 8s need to find their strength in vulnerability. So, that is a very quick and brief overview of 8s. I'm sure I have missed something, but I hope you've started to see some connections. I can see in the comments that there are a few of those. And 8s, remember, you are loved, you are trusted, and we need your leadership. We need the direction that you can pull us. We need your passion. But we also need you to know that sometimes it feels like you're rolling over us. And we know you're passionate, we know you're concerned, we know you care. So just show that care. Live with that concern and live in that collaborative effort that makes us better together. Thank you for joining us on this Enneagram journey, and on our next spiritual practice Thursday, we will look at Enneagram 9s. So until then, we'll see you later, and we'll put some books or articles and different things in the comments if you're interested to learn more. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.